All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of the Retail Investor Palantir session. I have a couple of friends that I met over social media, and these friends have become quite, let's just call it interesting in regards to their commentary around my social media content. And they're also fellow Palantir investors. So we said over the break, you know what? Why don't we do a fun little live stream? And we'll all four of us discuss different stuff that's going on in regards to Palantir. So I'm going to bring all three of these guys on. They've never been on a YouTube live stream before. So give a little bit of grace to them. They are very knowledgeable about Palantir, but they're in the retail investing community. They've consumed a lot of content, haven't been on a lot of episodes. So it's going to be exciting to get their perspectives, their thoughts, and really hear from real retail investors about how they think about the company and where it's going in the next decade. So without further ado, let me bring these gentlemen on stage. We have Nate with me. We've got Davis with me. And we've got Bailey, a.k.a. Bayray, with me. How are you guys?
Hello.
Good, man. How's it going?
Good.
So we will be discussing Palantir for the next hour. Thank you guys for hopping on the stream with me today. I'm really excited to talk to all of you guys in person. I did meet Davis in Las Vegas about 2 months ago. So I did get to see him. Bayray, I feel like I know because he's in the comments all day. And same thing with Nate. Nate's been Nate. I think Nate joined the channel when we were like 1,000 subs. So Nate,
yeah, it's been a minute.
So I think let's get the conversation started with this. Thank you, 78 people in the chat for being here. By the way, all their Twitters are in the description, so please make sure to follow them as well. Palantir is one of those unique companies that's up triple digits this year. Has obviously created a massive retail following. So I want to start the conversation with when did you find out about Palantir and what caused you to actually make the investment in the first place? Let's start off with Nate, and then we'll move to Davis and Bailey. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So funnily enough, it was actually during the meme era in 2021. One of my buddies at college was on Reddit. He's like, oh, this company called Palantir. They're like some tech company. You should invest. And I was like, okay. And I probably bought 5-10 shares back then. This is November 2020, I believe, or November 2021, either one. And it was just honestly at first it was just a meme, and then because of 2022, because of how badly it went down, I kind of actually decided to, maybe I should actually understand what I'm investing, rather than just buying some memes because they're going to go up the next day. So honestly, it started with just the meme era for me, and then kind of over time, got a lot better with understanding it.
So you were there in DPO just because of kind of what it felt like as a meme, and then eventually learned.
Yeah, I mean, the other companies I was buying was like Plug and all these other meme stocks during that time. And this was just one of them. And I remember I bought it at probably 20, rode up to 42 or whatever that was, 45. And then ever since it went down to $5 or $6, I was like, all right, I probably should understand what I'm holding before I keep buying more. So.
Okay, Davis, you have a very interesting story. You worked at the Cheesecake Factory, and now you are up 6 figures on Palantir as a retail investor. When did you get into Palantir, and can you tell me a little bit about your journey with the company?
I was up 6 figures. We need to put it back up to 20. So
okay, so high 5 figures. You're doing pretty good
on it. Actually, the story is kind of similar. And Steve Filarillo is actually going to like this one. I started getting into stocks when I was playing World of Warcraft, and I was just on Discord with a bunch of people. And some guy's like, "Hey, I made about $70 off of weed stocks." So I'm like, "Oh, stocks. Let me look into that a bit." And so I kind of got caught up in the meme era. I found a bunch of YouTube videos. Zip Trader was the guy that got me into Palantir. I made a quick $800 trading it. Then I bought back into it, trying to trade it again, lost the 800. And then I revisited it about 6 months later. And then kind of the same story as Nate. I'm like, oh, let me actually look into this company and see what I'm actually holding and try to understand it more than just a quick meme trade. And I've been obsessed with stocks and trading and learning about the macro and micro environment ever since.
Okay, very cool. And Bailey, how did you get into Palantir?
Yeah, so I started off investing right when I turned 18, and that's when I found Jeremy's channel through Tesla. I was looking up Tesla videos, found him, and then right when I trimmed my Tesla position a little bit because I felt like the valuation was too high, that's when I found your channel, Amit. I have no idea how I found your channel. I don't know if it was through the Dave Lee podcast or I'm not sure.
It was through
But
one of the 1,000 videos that I uploaded last year.
Yeah.
Got you
And
somehow.
I don't exactly know like what caused me to gain interest in it. I just kept watching your videos. I think it's because of how much Palantir can be implemented in every industry across every field. And I think because the TAM was so large, and I think coming from Tesla being my largest position previously, and all the things Tesla was working in, how it's like this giant ETF, right? That's kind of how I was looking at Palantir. I'm like, okay, well, everyone has data. Everybody can operationalize their data. And I just learned more through your channel and the people that you brought on. So.
Okay, very cool. So let's start the conversation here in regards to Palantir with management. Alex Karp. I think he's one of the most eccentric and, in his words, eclectic individuals that exists that is running a public company. Obviously, he gets a lot of people interested in what he has to say. When he talks, people really listen. He's not boring when he has discussions around Western values or philosophy or stuff like that. So here's the question, and we'll start with Bailey, then we'll go to Davis and then Nate. Do you think Karp is actually a visionary, or do you think he's kind of just saying this stuff to get people excited, or do you think he believes what he says, and is there a real correlation between his thoughts, his ideas, his views, and potentially the success of the company? Go ahead, Bailey.
By the way, I do want to mention it was my idea to bring Kelly on, but Amit got too jealous and didn't want it to happen. So,
right,
anyways,
right, because it's not like I've asked her to be on the podcast 1,000 times and she says no. Right,
but you didn't ask her when I asked.
Look, I'll put the link in the chat right now. She's welcome to join. She can join.
All right, Kelly, you got the invite. Okay, so I think if Karp was full of shit, I don't think he would be backed by these subcommittees by Congress and be backed by the United States government for 2 decades. It's not like he's just stepped in. He's been here since Peter Thiel brought him on 2 decades ago. And although they had to fight for a lot of contracts and sue the Army, they wouldn't be partnering with Palantir and give them IL6 level certification if Karp wasn't, the shit. So I think, when they got IL6 in 2022, I think the company was trading for like 14 billion, something like that. And when that happened, I didn't even know what IL levels were. But when they got IL6, I'm like, because the other 2 companies were $1 trillion companies. So it kind of just made sense that like, hey, there's something more here, and that's just when I kept watching your videos and kept diving into it.
Okay, Davis, how do you feel about Alex Karp?
That's a tough question, actually. I feel like that's one of the hardest questions you're going to ask tonight, because that's just one guy I haven't really focused on, even though he is the CEO. I haven't dived into his philosophical views that much. I kind of ignore it. But the guy is a visionary. You see what he says. One of my favorite interviews with him was when he was talking. I forget who he was talking to. He's like, see where my Palantir is at in 2 years. And I think it's only been a year since that interview. And we came out with AIP. We're getting brand new government contracts. The NHS came out. Everyone that slept on Palantir is being proved wrong now. Everyone thought that they're just a gimmick. They're not a true AI company. They're a consulting company. But what Alex Karp sees with Palantir is coming to fruition. He understands what the West needs. He understands what governments need. And he's built this company, like Bayray said, from the beginning. He's been there and he's had ups and downs. He's admitted when he's been wrong. So it's not like he's trying to hide anything. Like, he's admitted that the SPAC investments were wrong. And he just understands where this company needs to go. And I know there's been debates in the past where, we should separate government from business or commercial, or Alex Karp needs to leave as CEO. I just think it's completely wrong. This guy has done nothing but prove the doubters wrong and then just blow away my expectations. And I've only been following the company for 2, maybe 3 years now, and he just never fails to impress me.
Yeah, I think speaking of honesty, I think also when he was asked when the stock was $6, do you think it's overvalued, undervalued? He said at one point we were overvalued. At this point we're undervalued, and one point we'll be overvalued again. So I think he's pretty honest in terms of where the stock can go in relationship to the company. And at the end of the day, he just believes if the business executes, then eventually the market will reward it. Nate, how do you feel about Karp and management in general?
Yeah, I'm aligned with Davis. Quite frankly, I'm sick of the management slander. I saw that Emil posted that actually we're net positive with the SPAC investment.
Mm-hmm.
That people are, as sentiment falls price, when the
Right.
stock is $6-7, of course you're gonna slam on management for the wrong decisions. I just think people need to have a greater time horizon. I mean, we're talking about 2 to 4 quarters back then. But I think even on a philosophical or operational level, this guy knows what the hell they're doing. I mean, they took advantage of ChatGPT with AIP like the month after it came out. The SPAC investment is like more invaluable than the money they spent, when they can leech their hands into all the different industries and understand how Foundry can apply to those different industries. I mean, it's just like when you're in the precedent of like AI, like you need to have a moral and philosophical high ground. Like you can't sit here with all this, the powerful tech that is being created and kind of just be like, oh, we're here for money. Let's just keep making money, get the cash flows going, net income positive. I think you need to have some sort of moral stance and ethical perspective on this extremely powerful technology. And I think that's highly underappreciated in terms of Karp. So.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think AI has taken over. ChatGPT made AI mainstream. Palantir's been working on AI before it was AI for the past 20 years. And now I think they're in the prime position to capture what is going on with AI. And I think you need the type of management they have in order to actually get the job done. Speaking of AI, let's get into where we think the next trajectory of growth is for the company, which is AIP. I want you guys to be honest with me. What do you actually think of AIP? Do you think it's going to grow into being trillions and trillions, not trillions, but you know what I mean? Like really giving Palantir the multiple that it deserves? And do you think it is highly differentiated from some of the other products that exist in regards to implementing large language models and operationalizing it throughout the enterprise? Let's start with Davis. Any thoughts on sort of what AIP could be for Palantir?
Well, I'll preface this by saying ChatGPT and Google Bard have helped me immensely with just schoolwork and just doing very mundane tasks like writing discussions posts or anything. And then you look at what Palantir can do, and Bayray touched on this earlier too with IL level 6. They have the highest clearance along with, I think it's AWS and Microsoft that have IL 6. And if they're allowed to use their large language models with some of the most sensitive data in the world, then it's just, if for me as a student, I can find so much value in ChatGPT and Google Bard, then these higher institutions, government, military, uh, NHS, I can only imagine what they can do with large language models that have the clearance to handle such sensitive data. So I think there's immense value in it. And the time I've saved, these bigger institutions are just going to save that much more time and be more efficient and have that clearance to handle sensitive data. So I see LLMs really as the launching pad for where Palantir can go.
And
Plus,
because you've been using LLMs, you also recognize how significant they could be if they're in an entire enterprise, right?
oh, absolutely. And plus, I was going to say it's the gateway into the other products. Like we understand how strong Foundry, Gotham, and all their other products are. LLMs are like adding steroids to those programs and making them that much better, that much faster, and more efficient. So I'm really excited about the future of LLMs and AIP, and other companies are too. Like Sham just came out and said that they were expecting 140 customers in the month of November, something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers, but the demand for AIP is there, and it's just showing that other companies and other people are interested in it. And me, as someone who really doesn't understand the intricacies of what goes on in making an LLM, if these higher ups are that excited, it just makes me that much more excited.
Nate, your thoughts on AIP and future growth for the company?
Yeah, kind of. I was going to touch on what Sean said. The way AIP is differentiated is because of the guardrails that Palantir has. I don't know exactly what OpenAI, their enterprise side, is doing. I've never used it before. I haven't even seen anything of it. But other than that, I mean, Fabric isn't really even close. Obviously, it's on LLM. I guess it's like more like Foundry is different. But yeah, I think the guardrails is what differentiates, and I think it's kind of like the Trojan horse, and that'll allow the growth, which then will allow the upgraded prices and kind of the valuation that we're looking for. I think it was key. I think they did it at the perfect time. I think they were struggling to find a go-to-market strategy. They were struggling with their sales cycle. So I think when ChatGPT came out and they saw, holy shit, they had 100 million users in 2 days. Like, we need to capture this market. It's moving quick. Like, I think when people try and make fun of Karp or the management team, I mean, I think they operationally they realize, holy crap, like, we got to get this thing out to consumers now. So within like a month, I think they released their AIP. And I think that is what's the differentiation is the guardrails and the protection, the security.
I agree. Luke brings up a good point in the chat. New York Times is suing OpenAI today, and I think it's a really good move. I mean, you cannot train your models off someone else's content. That's just not fair. New York Times is a legacy media company. It's really, I think, unfair to a lot of the journalists to be able to do that. So I think more and more of this kind of guardrail securitization of content is going to be incredibly important. And that's where something like an AIP can come into play. Bayray, your thoughts on AIP and the future growth potential of it?
Yeah, so just like Davis, I'm a student as well, so I get to interact with ChatGPT and Bard. And so on a very simple level, I understand how it works and the value it brings to me. Now, when it comes to enterprises and governments, security is everything, because what gives you the biggest moat is your data and the things that are proprietary to your business or organization. So if that gets compromised because I trusted someone else with my data that's not had 20 years or IL6 level certification with the government, and my data gets exposed, the only thing that's keeping that value is maybe patents at that point. So when you don't have, so with ChatGPT, the data you get is unproprietary, meaning it's not tied to your business. It's data from the web. So anybody can access that. So when you're trusting an LLM with proprietary data, you have to make sure that who you're trusting your data with is going to lock it down, like Sean said. So, and I believe CodeStrap was the one that said AIP is not a standalone product. It's tied to Foundry. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a perfect way to get people in the door of what Palantir offers, because a lot of people have, experienced ChatGPT and Bard, and you don't have to be a software engineer or understand data science to be able to use those. So if I see Palantir has IL6 certification and it's tied to Foundry, and I understand what ChatGPT can do for me personally, if I can get interested in AIP and the defense or the securitization that they have with IL6, that's going to get me into the door of what else Palantir offers. So Palantir can upsell from there and tie it to Foundry. So if we are seeing a bunch of these customers, Palantir said, I think it was in the month of August or October, had more customers attend boot camps than they had pilot programs all last year. So what that says to me as an investor is the S-curve is happening. So that's why I'm willing to pay up a little bit more, 100% above my cost basis, because I feel like we're running out of time as far as a share price. But of course, valuations are a little high. We discussed this on Twitter the other day.
Let's transition to the boot camp and go to market strategy. I think all of us were there when it was at $6-8, and we saw that sales sucked. Karp kept saying, we don't do sales. We're not a traditional company. And then you see Snowflake growing at 70% year over year because all they do is sales. And you really start to wonder, well, if you can't sell the damn thing, what does it even matter? So, I mean, Davis, let's start with you. What were your thoughts on that 360 they did by May of this year, where they changed it to boot camps? And do you think that's going to be able to actually replace a traditional sales force?
I was kind of just under the impression that, like Tesla, the product was good enough to sell itself without the need for ads. The boot camps were they were a warm welcome. And it was really refreshing to see the demand, like we've already talked about, the demand that they're bringing to the company and the awareness that AIP is bringing to the world, really. I mean, I was going to stay true to Palantir regardless of boot camps or not, because I actually believe in the product. I believed in the vision and the mission. But I don't know. I'm here for it. I want them to keep doing boot camps. I want to see the demand grow even more. I just know that they need to maybe use some of their extra funds for more sales, a bigger sales force, because if demand is really that high, I don't want potential customers missing out because they weren't allowed to be invited to an AIP boot camp. But I don't know. I just want to see more of it.
Nate, your thoughts on boot camps?
Yeah, I think the boot camps were honestly key. I think like Davis, I was gonna invest. I was gonna keep investing regardless, but the boot camps is what is making me average up on my cost basis. I believe that in the commercial or the consumer space, like cars or phones, I think the best tech wins. But in the SaaS space, you need to get your name out there. You need to show what you're capable of. And I think Palantir was kind of pigeonholing themselves into like, yes, quote unquote black box. I understand that's, they're not actually a black box, but they kind of were being like this sort of, I don't know, like we're this special software. You need to come to us first. But in reality, if you actually want to grow into the valuation they want, you need to have something free, like the Trojan horse, that you can kind of show, hey, try this out for free. This is why our product is so good. Oh, look at Snowflake. Look at, Oracle, whatever else. This is why our product is better. Here you go. You can test it out.
Right.
Instead of saying, all right, pay us $5 million, or actually, implement it for 6 to 12 months, then pay us $5-10 million. It's like, that's a hard thing for a CTO, CIO, CEO to want to be like, oh yeah, I'll do that. When they can get Salesforce for free, they can get Snowflake for free. You need to compete on that free level, and then you actually can show why they're better. So honestly, I think it's key, and that's why I am consistently averaging up every day.
Bayray, boot camps, are you liking them?
Yeah, so from a very elementary level, take when a new company makes a new video game, right? They release it to like these popular YouTubers who are constantly playing video games, who have an audience, and they let them play it first and try it out and make reviews on it. And then from there, before they release the actual game, they tweak based on what these YouTubers say and stuff like that, right? So if you can get the product into developers' hands, let them try it for free, let them give you their reactions to it, and you can build off that. If you don't have that developer community, it's going to make it a lot harder to sell from within the organization. You're going to have to bring people to boot camps versus let the product out there for free. And then without having to invite people into a boot camp, you could just have them try it from within their organizations. And if the product is really that good, then they're going to talk it up to the decision makers of the company and be like, hey, we need to get on Palantir. We need to get Palantir certified. We need to get Palantir inside our business because it does X, Y, and Z. So the boot camps are a big step in the right direction. Kind of like Nate said, I'm not investing. I would be investing either way. But it's important to understand Palantir's sales cycles are slow, even with AIP boot camps. And you're not going to bank from the first contract. It's when you get them in for cheap, they use the product, kind of like Tyson Foods comes to mind. They save a lot of money off a small contract. And then next time they roll around, you charge them more and then charge them more the third time. And so I came in even before boot camps, understanding that this is a long-term investment. And as long as I'm seeing the contracts, new customers coming in, that's all I care about. Because I know the revenue, the big contracts will come way down the line, excluding government, because government contracts can be handed out at large size.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I mean, I think I agree with Karp on this idea, just like from an axiomatic perspective. I know you guys don't know what that word means, but that's okay. You'll Google it eventually. This idea that there's this like fundamental truth. See, none of you guys pushed back on that. All you guys talk shit on Twitter. No one pushed back on that roast. Absolutely hilarious. Ladies and gentlemen,
self-evident or unquestionable, by the way.
Okay, yeah, because you have to Google it. I just want the 200 people here to notice that these three trolls talk shit all day, give one little joke, they just sit back and take it. Anyway,
I'm focused right now.
And now they're going to think for the next 10 minutes, not even going to think about what I'm saying. They're going to try to think of a joke because
Take your sunglasses off. Take your sunglasses off.
From an axiomatic perspective, wait, what'd you say?
I said take your sunglasses off.
Oh, thank you. No, dude, I got it.
Oh, okay. Keep talking though. Go ahead.
From an axiomatic perspective, I think it's very true when Karp says value is defined in the software, not in the payment for the software. So if the software is valuable, then obviously people will pay for it. And that's a really unique go-to-market strategy because a lot of companies that are in enterprise SaaS, they want you to pay before they give you the software. So I think everyone that critiques Palantir of not having a pricing strategy, I know Alex from Ticker Symbol U, that was the big video he made of like, they don't have a pricing strategy. I was like, well, isn't that the point? To not charge the customer, to actually provide value and then decide what it's worth? And the question just becomes, if it's worth a lot of money, which is what Karp and Sham are saying, they will make a lot of money. The question just becomes, is that, inevitably going to be the case?
Yeah, I was going to just touch on the pricing strategy. I think when you're this early in AI, it's so hard to price a product that's only been in the market for, barely a year. AIP's only been out for 8 months. Obviously, Foundry, they've had commercially since probably, I don't know actually when they started Foundry, I think 2016, 17, maybe even earlier. But I think it's hard to have a pricing model for something that's so new and such like untested waters that you kind of have to go with the flow and figure it out. I'm sure in 10 years, there'll be 50 companies that have AI pricing strategies in terms of their software. But right now, it's just not that easy. Like there's like 10 SaaS companies every day that has a pricing strategy, but it's just not, that wasn't a thing 15 years ago. There was no pricing strategy then. So I think it's kind of the precipice of AI right now that it's going to be the same way. I don't think you could have a pricing strategy.
And I agree, if there's that many SaaS companies every day offering AI-enabled services, who is Palantir to be like, well, ours is 5 million? Because there's so many competitors, right? Versus, hey, take it for free, which is what they did with the NHS. They gave them a £1 contract for like 2 years, ended up being worth, almost 500 million after a couple of years. So I think it's the right strategy. It just might take, a couple of years to reflect in the actual growth versus in a couple of quarters. The government business. I want to get your guys' thoughts on, did you invest in Palantir? So this is a two-pronged question. We'll start with you, Davis. Did you invest for like the Western value freedom part, Palantir defends liberty, for the government side? And B, did you invest because there's such a sticky moat in the government business that once you're in, and even if the business, completely fails on commercial, there will still be something for shareholders from the government side?
Actually, yeah. So one thing that I really wanted to see Palantir achieve was that IL6 clearance that we've been hounding at for a while now. I am 100% pro-America. I believe in Western values. I believe that if Palantir fails, the West fails. That's my conviction level with Palantir. And so when they got that IL6 clearance, I was all for it. I started buying even more shares. And dude, this is hard because I'm so used to just listening to you that I don't actually pay attention to your question. So what was the question again?
So like Palantir has the government side of their business. And
Right.
I think there's two reasons you would invest in it. Number one, they get a shit ton of, they're going to do like 1.2 billion in TTM from government, US government. And then B, like, there's like this whole Western values. They took up the Project Maven contract. Google didn't.
Right.
So my question is, did you invest in Palantir because you just think they're going to make a shit ton of money from the government? Or did you actually want to be part of their mission of making sure the West is safe and all that?
Oh, yeah. So just piggybacking off what I said, I invested because I love America and I love what we stand for, the Western values. And this might be going a little deeper, but we just signed an $886 billion defense or military spending bill. And I can't remember if it's Karp or Sham, but they want 5% of that allocated to software.
Yep.
And so what better company than the company with IL6 clearance that has proven their capabilities, that is battle tested, than Palantir? So I believe that Palantir has the gateway to get maybe not all that 5%, but a big portion of it. And that's another thing that I'm looking for with Palantir is I want them to become that first software prime for the US government. I know Sham's been talking about it, and I wish we could get some more information on how companies go about becoming primes of the US government. But if there's one company that I believe that can achieve that, it is Palantir.
Yeah, I mean, Sean brings up a good point in the chat. The problem for many is they confuse the complexity with purposeful explanation. What does IBM do? What does Oracle do? What does SAP do? The answer is everything. It's okay to be complex. In other words, Palantir is a very Byzantine company, and that's okay, right? Because they do a variety of different things. And because they do a variety of different things, that allows them to integrate into a bunch of different verticals. None of you guys know what Byzantine means, but that's okay as well. You guys can use Google later. You can figure out it means intricate or complex. It's okay to have a third grade vocabulary. It is okay.
You mean vernacular?
You don't want to be there forever.
You mean vernacular? Go ahead, though.
Amit really thinks he's the main character.
Yeah, I know.
You just
Too much.
like axiomatic, Byzantine. These are like little grown-up words, but it's okay. You guys will learn eventually. Bayray, the government business. You are actually part of the United States government. You can tell us a little bit about that, and how do you feel about Palantir's role in the government?
Yeah, so I'm in the Army, so just
thank you for your service as well.
Thank you. So I'm in the National Guard, so it's just part-time. So hence the beard. But being in the Army, I don't speak for the Army, by the way, but being in the Army, we are really dumb. Most of us do have that third grade vocabulary Mitt was speaking of. Not me, though. I'm different. But if you can get end users like that to use the product and understand it, that gives me more conviction that really across any industry, like you don't need to be a software engineer. You don't need to be full stack like Nate, whatever that means, to use Palantir on the back or the front end, right? So to your original question, I didn't invest in Palantir for the government business. I was more excited for the commercial side of things. But I kind of looked at it like a call option, right? The commercial industry and opportunity was like the call option to Palantir. And I was like, if that completely fails, the government is going to be sticky, and we're going to continue to get government contracts that are going to be larger over time. And especially if we move more towards AI within our government. So it's sort of like a call option, the commercial side of things. But I did have that, conviction that, especially when IL6 came around, I was like, yeah, we're set. I don't need to worry about that. It gave me so much conviction, that alongside with the balance sheet with no debt. Those two things, IL6 and the balance sheet, gave me really all the conviction I needed to go really heavy into Palantir, but also not worry too much about the commercial. Like if it makes it cool, if not, like not a huge deal to me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think the government business is a big part of their moat. I think a lot of people that are scared that, the narrative was they're too reliant on the government. Then they started transitioning to commercial, obviously US commercial growing at around 30-35%. And then they were like, there's not enough government business. So I think that the government business is right where they need it to be. And eventually the government will be spending a lot more money on AI, ML, and Palantir will be getting some of those deals.
Do they split up NDR via commercial and government? I've actually never... They don't do that, do they?
I mean, let's talk about that. How do you feel about their lack of transparency on the earnings? Because net dollar retention has gone down dramatically. Went from like 130 to 107, and they put it in the highlighted text you see at the bottom of pharmaceutical commercials. Any thoughts on how management has kind of dealt with this year? I mean, let's pair the question like this. They couldn't grow like crazy, above 20%, I think because of interest rates and also because they were trying to figure out sales, but they did get GAAP profitable. So how do you feel about how they handled 2023 in regards to still being good to shareholders, but, some stats ended up going down dramatically? Let's start with Nate.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the middle on this one. I think the management did a good job of, their explanation for why they went GAAP profitable was, some of our clients want the reassurance that, we make money. Do I think that's I don't know if that's fully true. I think it's probably partially true, but there's Snowflake that's like not profitable at all. There's plenty of unprofitable SaaS companies. So I don't know if that's, 100% true. I'm sure there has some partial truth. Some clients probably did or didn't. But I think it also really upset me that they kind of hid NDR. Like every quarter, NDR got smaller and smaller and more of a footnote, just because they don't want to show how bad it is. But I guess I'm kind of indifferent. Like some things upset me, some things, it was cool for them to be got profitable a lot earlier than expected. It was from just treasury money, so I think last quarter was operationally. So that's great.
And that's a big concern. We're barely profitable, but the street's giving us 20 times price to sales or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, how much they're making like I don't know, 1% of what the revenue. It's like nothing in terms of actual profitability. But I think they just wanted to show it to the street. I think all of their employees have SBC. They're like, all right, guys, it's been like a year and a half. The stock needs to go up or I'm going to leave. They need to keep their talent. And I think the team knew and understood that Wall Street respects GAAP profitability, and that's kind of the direction they wanted to go. So I'm kind of indifferent. I think it was good, but I think some things are bad, like the things they take off slides and stuff like
Davis, how do you think they handled the transition to profits versus growth in 2023?
When it comes to the NDR stuff, I really didn't care or how they portrayed it on their earnings call. I just to piggyback off Nate again, I think with what they got GAAP profitable 2 years ahead of expectations, I think it was a sign of the street that they can do it along with their buybacks. I think they're just showing them that, look, if you want us to play the game, we can play the game, but we don't have to play the game. Like this is Palantir's world, and these other companies and Wall Street are just in it. Is how I'm seeing it. Like if they want to buy back shares, they can. If they want to be GAAP profitable, they can. So I think if you believe in the company and you believe what they can achieve and where they're going, then I genuinely didn't care how they reported things.
Okay, Bayray, your thoughts?
So correct me if I'm wrong. Was it Q3 2022 that Karp said that they're not going to be GAAP profitable until 2025?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I remember that was the quarter where you saw who the investors were and who were looking to get out. With and so I think obviously that's not true. We obviously have a full year of GAAP profitability a lot sooner than they said. But I think going the DPO route already pissed off Wall Street. And that's why a lot of people, and that's why Wall Street gives that premium to Snowflake. I think that was you who pointed that out, Amit. I never thought of it till you said that. And I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense. As far as, hiding stuff on the earnings, like, in my opinion, it really doesn't matter. You keep focused on what you can control as an investor and just making sure that they're still getting the customers, getting the clients. It really doesn't bother me either way. I think kind of like what Davis was saying, they can play the game of Wall Street if they want to. I think turning to GAAP profitability was a good idea. I think I believe management more than Nate does on the reasoning behind it. It does make sense. I'm not Nate. Why else do you think that they went GAAP profitable?
Well, I remember Karp's. I mean, obviously, I think it was just like to prove, like 2022 was like all about profitability. Any company that went profitable, their stock like 2x, like within a month.
Right.
So I think it was part of the Wall Street play of like, let's show them we can get profitable. Let's keep our employees happy for SBC. But I also remember Karp saying like, oh, some of our clients want us to be profitable, which I don't know. I don't know. I don't really work in like commercial or public company SaaS space, but I feel like they're not going to be like, hey, we need you profitable before we use your product. I don't think that's necessarily.
It was purely a fiduciary move to shareholders. I mean, like, I know you guys don't know what fiduciary means, but that's okay. It's just fiscal response. I'm fucking with you. I know you guys. I think it was just purely for shareholders. I mean, they had to do something. Otherwise, the stock was going to be stuck at 7. You can't have that in a year like this.
Yeah.
NHS deal. Davis, how'd you feel about the NHS deal that we got it?
Dang, you love starting with me, dude.
Keep going with David first, yeah.
Okay, let's do Bayray. Let's do Bayray. You can get some time to think. Bayray, how'd you feel about it?
Okay, so back to what you said. They gave the NHS a £1 contract for 2 years. So that kind of goes into what I was previously saying of like, get them in the door, charge them. I wish they would have charged them a lot more than £1, but still something relatively small to where the next contract you get a lot bigger. Obviously, this time around, they're doing a lot more with the NHS, like a whole lot more. The first time was just for vaccines, if I'm not mistaken. And so that, kind of with the Ukraine situation where we're going to give it to them for free during time of needs, I think that's probably why they did the same with the NHS of like, hey, we don't want to charge them because time of crisis, everything's shut down. Like we'll put the need first, the Western values first, and then we'll profit on the back end.
But how did you feel about them getting the deal in the face of all the propaganda that we as the retail community kind of fought against?
I think, well, for them to fight that strong against the people, from our side in the US, it probably seems like a lot more people than it actually is that are like fighting against Palantir getting this contract. I know Haley, she has a YouTube channel. She talks about how, in the UK, like it's not that big of a deal. Most people don't care. But I think for the NHS to go with Palantir, despite having all this backlash, just shows you how valuable the product really is. And that should give us conviction as shareholders to not worry about all the red tape and all that. And it should give you confidence in the product that even though like it makes so much sense from a political standpoint to go with literally anyone else, Palantir had the best product and we're putting the issue first before the politics and choosing Palantir. I think that says a lot about the product and we should have confidence in that.
Davis, your thoughts on fighting Foxglove for the
So with the NHS, so initially I was all about IL6, but ever since Palantir started to work in the healthcare sector, that's where my main bullish thesis statement is now. So I am in healthcare. I've been surrounded by it. That's what I'm studying for right now. So I know how broken healthcare systems are around the world. I don't know. I mean, I'm just generalizing, but I'm sure England's healthcare isn't much better than ours.
Right.
And so just watching them win that contract really solidified why I love this company. So to put it into perspective, I mentioned earlier that we spent $886 billion in defense spending.
Mm-hmm.
Each year, the United States spends around $3.8 trillion in healthcare. That is almost 4 times as much on healthcare than military spending. And Palantir has just started to put their tentacles in our healthcare system. And we've seen from Tampa Bay General, Concordance Health, and
Cleveland Clinic,
HCA. And they've presented at AIPs and have shown amazing results. And they have only been with those companies for a few months. And just to think, if they can do that in 3 months, what can they do to an entire healthcare system of a country? That is going to just show the world and other countries, like, look at what we can do with this broken healthcare system in this country. Let us help you. And so I was extremely happy with the NHS contract. And when they received all this pushback from Foxglove and Corey Cryharder, I was so happy. I was like, all right, bring it on. Like, you guys are such a joke. And I don't want to get too political or anything, but the people pushing back are they're just paid actors, really.
Oh, they're losers. They're losers.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I feel about them.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a good one. You finally got one in. Nate, your thoughts on the NHS?
Yeah, I mean, I think these sexy gentlemen said it best. It's like it was never about the dollar amount. It was about what they could prove for an entire healthcare system. I mean, I think like every country's healthcare in Europe is all socialistic, so they'll all probably want to use some sort of federated data platform. So I think even diminishing wait time by 10% or improving scheduling times by 10%, whatever it may be. I think it's just kind of like them being in Ukraine. It's just like battle tested and battle proven in a sense. And I think them kind of going through all of that political drama for, a year and a half and finally getting it signed. I think it's just good that it was they finally prove to investors that they can get through all the political crap. Because that was one of my worries, was like if they were never going to get this contract because people are stupid and don't want better healthcare. I don't understand. I think that would be a big problem in terms of the political side of Palantir's software. But the fact that they got it and now they can prove what they're made of, I think it's key, honestly.
I think they also let the product speak for itself.
Right.
Because who was that? I can't remember his name. He was supposed to debate Corey.
Oh,
Kreindler,
yeah.
right?
Louis Mosley. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just they didn't need to, because with the vaccine rollout, because the vaccine rollout and PPE was done through Palantir's product. It's like it was already proven. They didn't have to prove themselves again. They didn't have to debate these people. they already had the track record. So
Right. Yeah.
I'm just
It was nice.
I think it was really exciting because, I mean, at the end of the day, the NHS had every reason to not give it to Palantir. They could have picked any company that was like 80%, 40% as good as Palantir, and they couldn't do it because they realized that, you know, they had to actually fix this thing. It's been bad for 30 years. And if Palantir is the one company that maybe they don't fix it, but it has the best shot to fix it. And if you know, if they actually do fix it, I think there's a lot of contracts coming in the future that'll be worth a lot more than the one we got here. Let's get a question from Sean in the chat. He said, Amit, I have a question. Where does regulatory compliance fit here? AIP versus GPT, risks incurred, etc. Many are missing this. So I think his argument is, or his question is about how do we think about Palantir's approach to, honestly, civil liberties, regulatory frameworks? You got Europe's GDPR in regards to implementing AI versus something like ChatGPT that will steal the New York Times content and build their models. Anyone have any thoughts on Palantir's, I guess, moat in regards to this?
Yeah, I think it's like, it's hard to explain, but I think it just all ties together. It's Alex Karp's philosophical, you know, application to his company. It's their regulatory guardrails, like the granular access controls, like all of these things that any other enterprise SaaS doesn't have right now. They probably will, I'm sure, in the future. Like, this is not a winner take all, or it's not a winner take all market. I mean, plenty of people can win. I just think right now Palantir's ahead, but they have the security, they have the IL6 certification, they have a proven track record working with the government, which I think is the biggest proof in the pudding of security. OpenAI has not worked with government, so Palantir, I don't know why I said we, I don't work there. Palantir has worked with the government for the past 2 decades. They've used or worked with the most, you know, sacred data on the highest clearance level. So they're and it's battle tested, it's proven. Where OpenAI is just, I mean, who knows what happened with that same Altman thing? I mean, I feel like, anyway. But I think that they just have, it's the proof's in the pudding, really. They've worked with the government for 20 years. They have the security. They understand, you know, what they need to do. And they're not being sued by the New York Times. So.
Right. Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Do you want to go, Barry?
No, go ahead.
One video I love to show people when it comes to Palantir is their defense and military video, where they do the simulation where they have to.
You're talking about the South China Sea one?
Not that one. The one where there's
That's
like
the one I show everybody.
the Russian. There's like, how do I explain it? Dude, I watch this video all the time.
I think the point you're trying to make is that the fact that they're in Ukraine means that they understand guardrails.
It wasn't even that. It was just that it broke down like the chain of command, like who could access this data, and it just tracked everything. So there is the backlog, and you're able to track who had access to this data, where was it sent, where is it going, and then you can put limitations on what it can and can't see.
Right.
And so I think it does have those tools built into the system to prevent any of the risk of information getting into the wrong hands. But of course, there's going to be that fear that there's going to be some backdoor way to get people's data or something like that. Because I was talking to a friend, I made a little thread about this on Twitter, and she had no idea about the company, no idea what Palantir was or any of this stuff. And the first thing she said when I was talking to her about it was, it sounds like they can spy on us or steal our data.
Correct.
And I was like, wow, is this actually something people are worried about?
Right.
It was just out of the blue. And so I had to explain to her the guardrails they put up, what they do, that they don't actually own the data, that you have to put in the data, you have to give it access, and then it's you, the user, that's controlling the data, where it's going. And I wish I could explain that video better, but
I agree. I don't think they would get a 70 million countries healthcare contract or Ukraine if they were leaking data everywhere. I mean, that to me is evidence enough that they've actually built this in the right ways. Bayray, go ahead.
Look, even Davis talks to girls. Amit, what's going on?
I don't know how to do it. You guys got to teach me that. I can teach you about Palantir. You guys got to teach me about the talking to girls part. I don't.
Deal.
Mystery.
Deal. Yeah. So I think, well, we just had the AI summit meeting in DC, right? That's what it was.
Yeah.
Closed doors. We're talking about regulation. Alex Karp was invited. If you look at all the other names in that room, like we're working towards regulation, and what better than to have people with IL6 level certification in that room? And so and that alone makes Karp and Palantir stand out amongst the other people in that room, is that they have this leg up against everybody else when it comes to the government. And so you have 20 years of working with the government. If shit was not secure, we still would not be getting contracts. We wouldn't be shaking hands with Zelensky in Ukraine. We would not be the first ones there. We would not be the first public CEO there in Ukraine once the war started. Like, there's too many things that you can point to that show that we can secure the data. So as far as regulation, that's going to take time. Nobody really knows what the fuck they're doing. But we do have the subcommittee that Palantir is now on. So, and you have the AI advisory board that Palantir has. So like, if they're going to work with anybody, Palantir is going to be one of the first, if not the first ones that they go to. So, you know, as far as regulation, that'll come. And I think Palantir has a good head start against others when it comes to
on
that.
what Sean was saying. I think, wasn't it SentinelOne or one of the cybersecurity SaaS companies was breached? I'm pretty sure SentinelOne or like what or Zscaler.
I saw that. I can't remember what it was.
Cybersecurity was breached, and they didn't even realize for like a couple weeks. It's like your literally entire company is built on we're cybersecurity. We'll help you secure your data, and they were breached.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's literally just proof in the pudding. I mean, when a CEO, CTO says, "Hey, we don't really care about how powerful it is because we have other competitors. We want it safe." And Palantir goes, "Okay, here we work with the CIA here, we work with Ukraine here, we work with the NHS here. Here's how we secured all this data. We can obviously secure your data." And they're like, "Oh, okay, thank you." Like that's all it takes, honestly.
What is your bear case for Palantir if you had to come up with a reasonable one to get someone to not buy at this level or to sell all your shares?
I think people afraid of culture change and afraid of having one software kind of run, almost an entire company's framework. I think those two, initially, I would have said go-to-market strategy a year ago. I would have said the sales cycle is too long. Like, there's just no one can, it takes a four-deployed engineer. It takes 6, 12, 18 months. But I think now it's kind of companies unwilling to change their culture. I think in Silicon Valley, we've seen so many people. I remember seeing on like TikTok in like 2021, like PMs at the pool, or like Twitter had like wine on tap. Like, I think people are afraid of change and afraid of culture change. And if they're complacent or lazy, they don't want to be replaced by something that can do something 5 times more productive than them. I'd say that's my biggest bear case, like right off the top of my head.
Well, I think that's not going to be everybody. And the people who do adapt to change are going to be out-innovate the competition that are being lazy, like you said. So I think inevitably we're going to see either people adapt or die off. And so those adapting will get a head start against the competition that does not. So I think without saying, like, people will have to adopt to AI if they do want to stay relevant, stay alive. So that's hard for it to be a bear case for me. I think the adoption of AI is inevitable. And I think the only bear case I would say is Palantir can't capture that market, because you have the distribution king, Microsoft, who they have the customers already. You just add something to the existing thing they already paid for, and then boom, you got them hooked. So as far as adapting to change, people might be stuck in Microsoft products and just want to stay with Microsoft. I could see that. Adding a whole new software system to your organization is a lot of change for some people. So I could see that as kind of the bear case of like, hey, we're already using AWS. Let's just stick with what they have, the Amazon Q, more products that they come out with, right? So I could see that as far as like failure to adapt, but still being on the AI train. But I think so that's where Palantir just has to have the better product, and you do have to figure out how to sell. And I think AIP is a good start.
Davis,
Yeah.
any bear case for you?
I agree with what both these guys said, but I think a bear case for me is just the world of politics. And this one's going to sound a little weird, but it's coming from the healthcare side, is that they're just too efficient in the sense that the healthcare industry makes money not by fixing problems, but by making patients customers. And I just have this fear that Palantir is just so good and efficient that it's going to take away profits from people that are trying to profiteer off of sick people. For, and like I obviously don't want that. I don't think most people don't. They want like I feel like Palantir actually wants to fix problems, whereas other companies want to kind of fix the problem. It's like when you're treating the flu. Are you treating the flu or are you just treating the symptoms? And
Right.
I feel like Palantir actually treats the cause of the symptoms rather than just the symptoms. And so I feel like that might be a bear case, but that's kind of a stretch. But I think politics might be the hardest one. We saw the pushback at the NHS. We know that a lot of people do not like Palantir because they associate it with Trump, which also just blows my mind. I'm like, you have Alex Karp and then Peter Thiel, opposite ends of the spectrum, but they made something work. And I find that beautiful. But a lot of people don't see it that way. And so I
Right.
think there could be a lot of pushback from politics.
Yeah, I agree. My bear case is two elements. One, politics. Second is the go-to-market strategy doesn't work. If those two things don't actually become, big issues, then I think we're going to be fine over the next decade.
Yeah, one more thing I want to add on that. So as a Palantir investor, my biggest downside and hurdle I have to jump over, and I think this applies to most people as well, is like, I am not a software engineer. I don't have the ability to, even the things that Palantir does show us, I can't comprehend that because I'm not in that space. So I think that's with most people, is they're in the same boat as I am. So this is where I found your channel so valuable to me, is because you brought on people like Sean, like Coach Strap, like Dominic Rinaldi,
Right.
like even Matt Money, who's not super technical, but he is an end user. And so so I get all these different people that can translate into what the product does, how it works. And that's how I was able to learn so much about like how Palantir works without actually using the product myself. So that's where your channel has been super valuable, because the people that you've brought on. But the problem with that is I'm sharing other people's conviction at that point,
Right.
which makes it hard for me as an investor. Is, you want to have your own conviction for why you hold a company. And I do for other reasons that I can understand, but that's my biggest downfall. So that kind of co-aligns with my bear case, is the competition, because I don't fully understand how useful the product is. So
Right, because if
makes it,
Microsoft could build something just as good, and you don't know because you're not super technical,
yeah,
me included, right?
yeah. So that's where my biggest bear case comes in, is just because of lack of understanding of how the product works and the value it creates. So that's where I have to share that conviction. I think a lot of people in the Palantir investor community are in the same boat. So that's kind of why a lot of people, I think, saw Ticker Symbol use video and kind of got a little nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of like pushback or a lot of engagement nonetheless, because a lot of us don't understand how valuable and useful the product is. So I think that kind of co-aligns with my biggest bear case, is just the competition and how useful the product really is.
Yeah, now that I thought about it more, I actually think my biggest bear case is something Coach Rep mentioned, which is the developer community.
Right.
I think the fact that, so for example, Salesforce, I got a certification for Salesforce, and I went on a free website, learned it all for free, and all they do is pay for a $200 exam. That's it. I did all free. I used all the software. I understood how it worked. I mean, there were so many videos, there's YouTube channels I could watch and for help. I think that, along with the go-to-market, is kind of, those need to work together and coincide. I think you can't really have a strong, that 50, 60, 100% growth rate we're looking for without the combination of the dev community and AIP, the scalable product. I I think for long term, that dev community really needs to start getting going. And I think it's good. I think they've allowed Palantir employees to kind of be more social on Twitter. I think they're kind of understanding that, like, okay, we probably should be more front facing than we initially kind of thought we should be.
So do you think your solution to that would kind of go the same route of like, hey, I can just hop on here, take the classes, and all I have to pay for is the test?
I think obviously it's a little bit more complex, but I think Salesforce honestly like crushed it when they initially started. Like, you can get a Salesforce certification so easily, and now obviously there's AWS, GCP, Azure, all these sort of companies. I think yes and no. I think that it's obviously more complex, and you can't just hop on and like learn Foundry. Like, it's a lot more complex than Salesforce. But I think AIP is kind of that more quote unquote simplified version that can help you kind of get your feet wet and be like, oh, okay, this is how I can use this AI application. And then you start Foundry like, holy shit, ontology, what does that mean? But I think that, I think AIP should be front facing, maybe even something more granular, more simplified that they could show. I don't know what that would be necessarily. But I think Coach Rep hit the nail on the head when he dropped that video or tweeted that. It's like 100% key to be able to have that support. And like, if you work at a company that uses Palantir and like, let's say Palantir is busy because they're trying to scale their company and you can't reach anyone, like, it's going to piss you off. They're going to be like, oh, I want to switch. OpenAI, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff online. I'm pretty sure Amazon has BlackRock, Microsoft has Fabric. I'm sure they have a massive dev community on all of these websites that they could read any problem they have. I'm sure they could get it solved. So I think that is 100% key.
Yeah, I think if they expand that dev community, I mean, that's going to be big just for internally building out the culture. But, that's something they got to fix in 2024, really expand, and Coach Rep's trying to help them. Garcia asked the question about buybacks. Do you want them to do buybacks right now at this price? Or how do you kind of think about the $1 billion they could use for buybacks?
I don't know why I started talking when I don't really actually know the answer yet.
I personally don't. I don't want them to spend any of that money at this price.
I don't. I'm kind of honestly, I'm indifferent. If they did, I wouldn't be like, oh no, but I wouldn't be like, yay. I think it's just like, okay, cool. I mean, thanks for getting down SBC and kind of stopping dilution as quickly. But I'm not like, oh, you need to buy right now. You have to. Or I also don't think, oh, it's terrible to buy right now. Because we're doing nothing with the money. I mean, obviously you can throw it in treasury, but interest rates are going to go down. So at some point, you need to start allocating the capital somewhere. Whether it's like, I think I like Chris's point is like start a venture fund. You have super talented people. If they have ideas, let them go and give them some money. But I think honestly I'm indifferent.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, Nate. Is like, while you can get a good yield in treasury, stick with that, and then as the yield becomes less attractive, maybe then start implementing a buyback. But I feel like once you start that route, you kind of need to keep that up, kind of like Apple's been doing, but obviously Apple's in a whole different ballpark. But I'm not against it if they do it. I don't care if they don't do it. I do like seeing how healthy the balance sheet is and having a fat stack of cash. So that I kind of like over buyback. So if I had to pick one, I would say, stick with the cash, keep investing in treasuries. When the yield from treasuries comes down, go ahead and do buybacks. But I don't think it's a big deal either way. It's not, it's such a small percent of the market cap. I don't think it's making a huge difference anyways. And maybe we'll see that they did do buybacks this quarter. But we'll see.
I actually look at it as more of a Google route where they're not like an Apple where like they're only doing buybacks basically to grow their EPS, where it's Google is growing because of their tech, but they also have a buyback program because they just have such high margins and such high cash flow. Or like a Microsoft where they have like this special little dividend and maybe they'll do buybacks. But I prefer the buybacks because Palantir dilutes a pretty good bit.
Yeah, I think Palantir will get there, but
we're for sure. We're early stages. Yeah.
So I say just hold on to the money for now. It's better to have it than to not.
Right.
Of course, we don't want dilution from selling stock in the future if worst case scenario. But I mean, the margins are so high. Like, just give it time, and the cash buildup will get even larger, and then we can start talking about buybacks when they are more material.
Davis, thoughts on buybacks?
Dude, I can't even comprehend $1 billion. So for me to give an opinion on what Palantir should do with it, would just be wrong. But I think I lean more towards what Bay Ray said. I would prefer it to just stay as a fat lump sum on their balance sheet. Like I do enjoy seeing $3 billion on their balance sheet, knowing that they have that flexibility to deploy that money in various places. And if they started buying back now, it's like, okay, you have 2 billion left. Oh, what are you going to do with that? Another billion buyback next year? It's just I'd rather have them have the flexibility to use that money in different avenues.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Not yet.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that at the end of the day, $17, $18 right now, given the growth, I think is a little bit too expensive to pay. So, I mean, if they hold off, if we get a dip back to 14, 15, I think that's fine. But I think it's better to collect cash or interest from the net interest income they can get from just treasury bonds on that. We're wrapping up towards the end of the pod. I have one final question for you guys. Thank you, 287 people, for being here. This is Bay Ray, Davis, and Nate, awesome members of the Palantir community. Been here for a couple years. All their Twitters are in the description. What do you guys think about the Palantir community? What do you guys think about this weird thing we've created on the internet? Hundreds of thousands of people, I think, is the TAM at this point. I just use Palantir's Twitter account as the TAM. They have 150,000 followers of people that obsess about Palantir all day and have got to actually know each other as human beings and as friends because of it. Davis, go ahead.
Bro, I wrote a song about the Palantir community.
Did we show that? Did we show it? It's on your. It's a pinned tweet, right?
Yeah, it is a pinned tweet.
Okay, no, this is perfect. Everyone should be able to see this. People that have
By
never
the
seen
way,
it before should see
I
it.
am making a rap when this hits $100 stock
really?
price. Oh yeah, I have so many banger lines right now. It's crazy.
Look, and the reason this is important is because when you have an obsessed retail community, you have chances for the stock to keep going
Damn,
higher.
40K views.
People
Shit.
care. All right, so this is Davis's speech about or song about the Palantir community. Here we go.
You are more than a meme, so I'm singing a shanty. What you mean to me, you are very complex, which is why we invest. You gave us more products that are simply the best. With Gotham, the West has IL-60 fence, and Foundry has twins using data.
This is great.
All guided by meta.
And man, this is how you get women, by the way.
You're right. It's so weird. I was thinking of learning guitar last night. I was watching some guitar videos.
Well, you shouldn't.
Okay.
This guy's actually a top tier hater. My God.
Dude, I really was like, yo, I need to order a guitar. Like, I really wanted to learn guitar again.
Dude, see, this song makes it seem like I know a lot more about Palantir than I really do. But I'm just here for the memes.
Arnie with his bullets and ether his links. We love when Chris Patel and Matt
R.I.P.
such sexy accent. We love it the most. So I'm raising
17 people left, so thanks for that, Davis.
It's fine.
Nice.
They're gonna go follow him on Twitter.
Yeah, you guys got to follow on Twitter. Listen to the rest of it. So, okay, so you made a song. Why'd you make the song, Davis?
Because I like the community, honestly. Like, I like the company, and just I've learned so much these last 2 years from this community, just from watching your videos, the guests you bring on, and it was just I've just fallen in love with the process of learning micro environment. It's actually made me second guess my career choice. I'm like, why am I going into healthcare when I love finance this much? So I just made the song as kind of a, I don't know, a thank you, just a tribute to the community.
Nate, how do you feel about Palantir community?
Oh, I love this community. I think it helped me like reinvigorate my Palantir thesis. Like I understood it on a much better level when I joined Twitter and saw like everyone that was talking about it, all the different perspectives, bear cases, bull cases, super bull cases, super bear cases. I mean, it's been great, honestly. It's like there's a little bit of ego involved, some people dunking and stuff. I'm not gonna name names, but I don't know. I think it's great. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it brings the best of people, and it's a really, really smart community. Like definitely up there with Tesla, and I think because Tesla's just a freaking car, I think that Palantir is definitely even a little bit more advanced than them. But I think both communities. I mean, it's great. I love it.
Ray?
Yeah, I think it's great because Tesla has, I would say, in front of Palantir as far as like largest like cult following community, and Palantir is on its way to become that. And so you saw on Tesla's huge run over the last few years before obviously 2022 that you have this huge run up from retail, and then nobody in retail wants to sell their stock. And then you have this huge run up in Wall Street. And I think for the last couple of years, we've been building that strong investor retail community in the stock to where like show me 20, show me 30, 40, $80. Like we're not selling. Like we are in this, we don't want to leave. So you saw that with Tesla. You still see it with Tesla. I mean, I know people who bought Tesla in 2016 that are still DCAing today, that they don't care what the price is. Like, show me in 10, 20 years. Like, that's the kind of investors you want in your company. And we're starting to get that with Palantir over the last couple of years. And so I think that alone kind of creates a floor for the stock at some level. But I think it's really good to have, you know, you said it, Amit, that like, how can we bring, obviously not this podcast, but like Palantir Weekly, like thousands of people show up to watch that, even if they go back and watch it, right? Like you're not getting that to where, you know, people can come on and talk for an hour, 2 hours every single week. And you make videos about it every single day. Like what other company can you do that with? So I think you have to have something that's solving big enough issues and that has a big enough TAM for people to care about. Because, you know, Davis is in healthcare, right? Like he might not care too much about like software engineering, but like Palantir AI software, like that's implemented in healthcare. So it can get Davis interested for that reason. So I feel like you can bring people from all different places to care about this one thing because it is relevant in so many different fields. So with that being said, I love the community. I love that we're building that kind of cult-like following, you know, some people don't like. But it definitely does create for a steady stock price as far as like creating a floor. So yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
Camera, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. This camera's being weird, dude. It's like, did you see this?
Yeah, it's like the red. What is going on?
But he's on Mars.
I'm gonna put it back. It's so weird. It randomly does this.
I got a lot better.
Oh wow!
Yeah, now it's
there you go. You got a zinger in there. You got to go. Wow! There we go. It's better. I would agree, dude. I think that there's not that many other companies in the world that you can actually talk about in regards to creating consistent content. You know, there's 250 people here on a December 27th. Most people should be with their families, and they're like, you know what? Let's hear what some people have to say about Palantir. And I think it's because there's a level of excitement and exuberance around this company it's hard to really quantify. But there's something that you feel when you think about the company for all the philosophy, all the values, and then also just the market potential of what they could actually be over the next decade. So I think it's only going to get bigger. I think more people are only going to get excited as the stock rises because the company does better. More retail is going to get into it. More institutions are going to get into it. And it's going to be a fun kind of story over the next 10 years in terms of what happens for Palantir. So it's going to be exciting. Thank you to the $5 super chat from Troy Moore. Thank you for the super chat as well. Thank you for joining the stream. Any last words from you, gentlemen, that you would like to say around Palantir?
What I sent you on Twitter, pull it up real quick.
You sent me something on Twitter? Okay.
Yeah, I sent it in the group chat. It's that chart I wanted to show.
Okay. Oh, yes, you did want to show this chart. Let's see this. Okay, cool. Let's share this.
Do you know how to use the computer?
I do. I have a little bit of experience.
Okay.
Here you go.
Just checking. Okay, so this, I can't remember where I got this chart from. I don't know if I got it from Andre or where I got it, but this shows the kind of like adoption of the internet, smartphones, and the projected adoption of AI. So obviously, as the internet came along, you know, a lot of people were skeptical. Took a lot of people to see it working for other people before they jumped on it, right? And then you have the smartphones that, you know, you can take what you built on the internet and make it into an app, and it's just easier to integrate from the previous, you know, adoption of the internet. So you have AI, which in this chart you see each one that comes along makes the or the previous one makes the next one more easily adopted. So with the internet and smartphones, you're going to have the implementation of AI go a lot faster. So if you think the internet in the 90s was a good investment, Apple smartphones was a good investment in the late, 2008, 2010, 2012, like AI is going to be, I think, adopted a lot faster than these two. And you can kind of see the projected adoption of that in this chart. And I think, I can't remember who said it, but 2020 with COVID lockdown, like you saw, I think it was like 5 years of innovation happen within a year or two because of like all this radical change that we had to adapt to, work from home, all that. So you're seeing innovation happen a lot faster. And I think that's no different with AI. So with that being said, call it FOMO, call it what you want, but like I'm willing to like average up 100% over my cost basis to buy more Palantir because I believe Palantir is the front runner of this AI, if not one of the top players. And it is important to know, even if there is so much competition and we might not be first, the market is so big. That Code Strap was saying, the market is so big, it doesn't, you don't need to be first. Like,
I mean,
just
ChatGPT gets 100 million users in a week. Like, yeah, it's a big market because people are using it because they actually find value in it. What other product has gotten that many users? That's not a TikTok type of product.
Time to value and security. Palantir wins in both of those. So I'm not worried. That's all I got.
Davis, any last words on Palantir?
No, I want to do this again, though. I need to be more prepared.
No, you did great. You guys killed it. You guys absolutely, again, for everyone watching, these guys have never really done a live podcast before ever, but they've been studying Palantir for years. I think you guys did great. You killed it. Nate, any last words?
We're going for another hour, right?
Probably not. I think we're done.
No, I'm kidding. Just to the moon. $1 trillion company next year. No, I'm just kidding. But no, to the moon for sure.
I agree. To the moon. It might take a decade, but I think we're all headed to the moon. All right. That's it for us. Thank you, everybody. See, this is what happens, and you got to do it live. It just ends up coming. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Everyone's Twitter is in the description. Please make sure to follow them. If you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter. It's a thriving Palantir community. Even if you don't tweet, there'll be a ton of updates there. And yeah, we'll have Nate, Davis, and Bailey on, I'm sure, again next year and talking about more Palantir stuff. That's it. Thank you for joining, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Guys.